Welcome to From an Educator. In this episode, the end of school. Let's get it started. Welcome back to From an Educator. I'm Mr. James, an educator, and this is show number 61, the end of school. That means it's the end of this school year for me as an educator at an elementary and a middle school in Maine, and my reflections of what happened, what went well this year, what didn't go well, and yeah, some stories to share. And wow, it's been a interesting week. It's currently Saturday. It is June 6th. Actually, it's June 5th. Let me make sure about that. Yes, it's June 5th. Sorry. Had my mind thinking about what I have to do for Monday's class on the 7th because there's one more class left. And I get to reconnect with my cohort A students and then say goodbye for the last time. And I think that may be even more of a emotional thing for the school than it was on this past Friday. So school has been winding down for the past few weeks. It just seems things have been wrapped up faster than they have been, I think, in previous years. Maybe not as fast as last year, because 2020, of course, with the pandemic closing everything down, they just said, okay, school's going to be done this time, and it was done in May. But being in the school and having to go through those regular processes that you normally do when you have to finish grading, you have to get everything ready for next year, get the students involved in thinking about the next grade and, crossing those T's, dotting those I's. It's much different when you're in the school doing this. So I feel it's a more of an emotional reaction to doing something for the last time. And I always mention to each class, like, I'm not going to cry. And I haven't yet. I've just felt pretty sad. And I've reflected that with the music I've been playing for students. Not that it's all been sounding seemingly sad, which of course is in the ear of the beholder, but I have chosen music that is maybe the title or a melody or something like that in every other song might come across as my way of saying goodbye, or something that someone would call reflective music. That's all I want to say. Well, this is being a new surprise for those that haven't been with this podcast any length of time. It used to be myself and another person named Mr. Ritchie, and we used to have a podcast called We Are the Educators that may soon come back, because next week we basically have off after Tuesday and we're on summer vacation. So he's expressed interest. I could have recorded a few days ago when he was actually at my place, but I just didn't get a chance to. It's just one of those things where it's like I had to set things up, and it's too bad because we could have done an episode. But for those that might be enjoying the current content, which is more like me giving these soliloquies or these monologues, that might be a little disruptive to you. If you've joined in the past month and a half or so to hear another person, but this show began as a duet, as two people hosting what was educators talking about science, talking about what they do, and basically making sense of the world from the little old state of Maine. So I have changed this slide. So I wrote originally this slide when we did this season that we started using slides. This slide was about what's happening with the coronavirus in Maine currently. Well, I've decided to change that because it right now is fairly low. I think we have under 100, maybe around 50 or less cases daily. Of course, there could be a little bit of a spike, and of course, if I hear something about that, I will, you know, talk about it. But right now, the mask mandate has been lifted for those vaccinated, but of course, those that are unvaccinated, whatever, they'll do whatever they want. So, yeah, I went into a grocery store today and very few masks. Of course, I had my mask on. I just don't want to get anything like a cold or anything from people. And honestly, I feel like walking through a store with people, there's going to be a lot of smells that maybe my mask kept me from, and I'm just not willing to get into that yet. And but I mean, summer's here. Very soon it will be here, like officially. But it's yeah, I don't know. Things have just kind of changed a little bit, and I feel we can focus less on this virus if we don't have to, and more on what I call this slide updates in my Maine life. So where is my life headed? Now I'm not going to make this into a long monologue like I could. I've got some other slides to go through today, but for those listening, my life is headed to playing more music, to preparing for whatever might, you know, come my way as far as gigs where my talents might be used. Uh, Continue to do other things that I do, my schedules, making better foods, work with my diet, my exercise protocol, all of these different things. Um, Last night was my first rehearsal in over a year with a group of people, which was great. And it's with a band that I'm with that we may have some gigs in the fall or late summer, but it's unsure of where the band is headed because we have some things going on that maybe I'll share in a later episode. But basically, 3 out of the 4 members were present last night, and we kind of took a different route, and it worked out. And it's a sound that I think we can handle, and it's kind of like what we call a plan B in case the 4th member maybe needs some help. And that just means help as far as we can fill in when they might not want to do their part or they're winded, I guess. Trying to be, I guess, kind of vague with this, but musicals, as I listed on the slide, are something that I'm looking forward to, and they may be coming up. There are a lot of people talking right now about opening theaters in the area, and I'm ready for that sort of thing. I would love to have something in the books before I get too busy with these other side gigs, which I don't mind, but it'd be nice to do something. Now, it is true that in the fall, that's when a normal theater season starts. So I'm just hoping that my name gets, mentioned when a meeting pops up for a certain musical or such. I just kind of want to be, I want to be back in action and back and on stage again, which would be great. Aside from a stage in the corner of a bar somewhere, not the most fun thing, but so my life is basically headed towards different directions for potential gigs. And for me, a gig is just like any little side job. I will be teaching summer school. I will be practicing as usual. I will be giving lessons, private music lessons, and whatever gigs can fill up the rest of the time, that's great. I had a little thing on the slide. I wrote a better future with a question mark. And yeah, I'm hoping it's going to be a better future, although I am very unsure of how school is going to be in the fall. I'm also unsure about, how these gigs are going to pan out. Like I mentioned with the mask thing, I still feel very comfortable wearing a mask, But I know I'm going to show up to places where no one's wearing a mask. It's going to be inside, and people are probably going to be a little bit too close for comfort. And so I guess I have to come to terms with that somehow, or just be able to wear a mask and deal with all the potential flack I might get for wearing one, which, like, that's ever stopped me before. But a better future, I'm hoping we can have a better future together, but it's important that we make it a better future, right? All right. Well, the first major slide of the night, whenever you're viewing this or hearing this, I want to start with the negatives of the year. And it's interesting if you're watching this because you're probably seeing that I have a film negatives up, which is interesting metaphor for a lot of things, being that now that the year's done and we can look back and I can see it in a different light and I can see what happened and maybe think about how I want to change things, which is kind of like someone taking film like they used to and splicing it and kind of rearranging it so that the following time you want to view something, it's edited, it's different. So this year we had a few negatives. I don't want to kind of harp on a lot of these, but there are some major things, I guess, that kind of affected everything. Everyone talked about this year being horrible, survival, this, that. I thought I could connect with students really well. I thought a lot of things great happened. It really brought out a lot of different talents that I had and that I developed. And I think that I connected with students on a more personal level, and they kind of felt that music was important. I mean, at least I'm hoping, but I did get a lot of responses for my online material. But starting with the negatives, one of the first major points I have is students missed out on social opportunities. So cohorts basically split students, you know, not less than a half, more like a third or so. So there were less students, peers that they could interact with. And the social opportunities of, meeting with maybe other grades or with students in other classes, a lot of this stuff was put on hold for safety reasons. I remember when months ago when it was like only certain people can be in the hallway at once, and very strict about things like when people were walking at the same time in other classes, and then it kind of got a little more relaxed, and so now I can see other classes passing between each other in the hallway, but social opportunities that were missed out, eating lunch in a cafeteria, maybe with another grade or several different classes. I mean, talking with groups of students outside at recess instead of having them be in different quadrants, which basically happened. A lot of different things that just were indirect social opportunities, which we take for granted, but then we realize that, hey, that's how we learned how this happened, or we learned the news of something and it changed us somehow. So I remember when I was in elementary school and talks I had with students, with friends on the playground, and how I remember that to this day, many, many years later, because it was really important for me to have that, and how this year kind of put a hold on that. And for students at like a pivotal point where they're leaving elementary years to go into middle school years, it's a big missed opportunity of growth for them. And I just feel bad that happened. Communication was difficult this year, just communicating with people in general. I mean, yeah, we have email, we can text, we have ways to talk with them, but everything seemed to be a little bit like, okay, hold on, I'm busy. Or communication was second to everything else we had to do to make sure safety. And safety should be first priority, but there were those that were like diligent more than others. And we discussed this in an earlier podcast, many podcasts ago. But it's just that thing where I feel like it's a communication breakdown. Certain things couldn't happen, certain things just didn't happen. And, I had teachers that never joined my classrooms online, and they never gave me a decent reason why, but they basically couldn't get their own lives together. I just feel bad that happened. I just feel it's a communication breakdown. That's basically encapsulated what that is. So personally, in my classroom, one major problem that happened, and I feel it was detriment to the students, was group games were not allowed with close interaction. So one of the things as a music teacher I like to do is to see if students can keep a steady beat. And that's from K through 6. That's a very important thing. If we're together, and maybe say in around a circle or a semicircle, I would have things I would pass, and I would set a beat, and I would have them pass it on a specific beat. And I would have students that couldn't do that have help from other peers, and they would help the others to pass something. And that was, the first year and part of the second year, that was a major thing that I did. And it really helped kind of to tie things in rather than watching me clap and then keeping, everything together while following me, which I had to do this year. But it was also things where students could collaborate together and could share, like passing a cup or, having an instrument that they both could pay attention to together. And that couldn't happen because it was too close. I always kept this 3-foot distance. And there's only so many things you can do within 3 feet. And especially when one of your jobs is to keep students 3 feet apart, it kind of dampens a lot of plans you might have for any group games, because you kind of want to feel like every student is siloed in their own little 3-foot bubble. So I felt bad that a lot of the games that I used in previous years could not be used this year. I did reinvent myself. I told you in a previous podcast how positive that was for me. But it's just one of those things that I feel bad that students get a chance to take part in these group games. Now, a curriculum was adapted, as I previously mentioned, to fit these situations. And I did a complete reboot of everything. So I don't know if that's such a negative, but for students, for teachers, teaching students the same way they've been teaching for years, to all of a sudden not be able to use all of that, that must have been quite a shock. For me, I love to adapt. I love to change things. And I always think the previous year was not my best. I can get better. I can get better. And I'm never going to stop doing that. I'm always going to try to get better. But I'm always going to have to adapt my curriculum. And I'm just used to that sort of thing. So this year didn't really throw a monkey wrench into anything. I have a theme. I have major plans that I begin at the start of the year, and I just try to see them through. Now, did I get to see all them through? No, I did not. I had more on the drawing board and less that can actually be enacted because I didn't have a lot of time. 30 minutes per class is very limited, especially when you only get 6 classes with students and you don't see them for 2.5 months. So that's what I was dealing with. So that probably affected classroom teachers quite a bit, seeing that they had to catch students up, and then finally students can react in their own grade level and do materials from that, and then bye, you're in the next grade. And I feel like if we were 1 year behind starting out this year, then we're now probably 2 years behind for students next year. I still feel we'll be having to play catch up. So I feel something's been lost because of the curriculum adaptation. And playing catch up is not going to be so easy if teachers rely on methods they've used in the past. because those methods have been able to be stretched out so they can take something that doesn't seem like it's a lot of things, but stretch it out so that it's done within a lengthy amount of time rather than trying to condense it. And they just need to find a better way to do that sort of thing. That's basically what my life is. It's trying to find a way to learn something faster so I can perform it or teach it, basically. And yeah, for me, I don't think it hurts that much, but I know for others, it was quite a shock. So my last few points: some teachers broke under this pressure. Yes, several schools right now, as I'm seeing, as I browse on job listings, are losing teachers, and they need staff. Um, this year, I didn't think my school would lose any, but we have lost a few. There's probably going to be more because a lot of people wait till the end of summer to break the bad news, which is horrible, but that happens. I actually was hired because of that. And we'll go into detail about my hiring and what I've heard about that in a later episode. It's kind of interesting. So teachers broke under this pressure and have been talking about how it's been stressful and they couldn't manage it. And now that the end is here, are they going to stay? Are they going to be worried that next year is going to be completely opposite of what they experienced and what they have adapted to, and they just don't want to go through it? I guess I'll find out. I'm hoping I can see some familiar faces next year. I'm sure I will. I just feel that losing too much of a population of your school, your staff, it's going to be kind of shocking, especially for students that are returning and wanting to see a certain person and then not seeing that person. Because that happened this year for a few classes where teachers were out, they were maternity leave, or someone was sick or something happened. And yeah, students that had several different subs, you could tell that they felt unbalanced. And I see them for half an hour once, twice a week for 3 weeks. I couldn't fix problems of that magnitude in my short amount of time. So I just feel bad. I wanted to be a mainstay for them, and I made sure I never missed any days this year. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful I didn't get sick. But yeah, probably masks, right? Masks. Why do you think I want to wear them still? The other thing is some students could not adapt. So I did see students that did work maybe at the beginning of the year, and then they just stopped doing work. And there were students that never did any online work for me and just couldn't focus in class. We had students that could be hybrid, coming in person and doing something online, or students that were fully online. It was tough. I know, depending on the age or any age, for students to go through this was a very difficult thing than previous years. So students were always given that, benefit of the doubt and given that leeway. But of course, if they're not getting taught, they're not learning. And where are they going to be next year? The summer slide is a real thing. And if they were sliding all during the year, then that's getting them back to where they should be, grade level. That's going to be nearly impossible next year. And I just feel bad that some students basically fell by the wayside this year, a lot more than we have in the past. And we're going to have to clean up those pieces somehow. And I'm ready for that job on my end for music, but I don't think I have the toughest job in doing that. So the main theme of today was school is ending. And I started with the negatives. And now I'm going to the positives. And for me, I feel there were a lot of positives this year. I actually liked the experience. I liked going in to teach. I always love going in to teach. But the classes I've taught in the past, some of them seemed like I had to run through a lot of ideas to engage certain students. And this year, I had almost uniform engagement for every single class. And that was just amazing. And that's one big positive that I basically didn't write down here. I wanted to start with first. So, my first major point is I got to connect with students across platforms. So I got to see them in person. I got to see them through Seesaw, Google Classroom. I got to see them through YouTube. Hopefully, they got to see me. I've continued some YouTube shows that I started, and I can't wait to start recording new material for some of them that is going to take a little more processing to do. I'm going to have to update my computer, and maybe that's going to reflect on my quality of show on this show right here. So everything works better. I started a YouTube channel. That was a major thing, specifically for students that I put my content on. And next year, I am going to be using my channel to showcase things so they can watch through my channel. And I'll make sure to, say what I need to say. If it's something that I can rehearse and say in front of a camera and have it sound precise and, graphically entertaining, then I will do that, as well as say things in person. So they'll have me on the screen and me in person basically doing the similar thing. So, but maybe with cameras and editing, I can go outside, I can show off instruments, I can be in certain places that I can take them that they couldn't normally go. So, new experiences this year at school. The cleaning, not all a bad thing. Cleaning, I think, is important. I've always cleaned, but I just was more diligent this year, and I felt it was important to do so. And you know what? I made a habit of things. I had a good schedule, and I'm going to keep that going. I tried to shave my time off every single time I had to clean a room to see which order I did things in, moving chairs or spraying down this or wiping down that. And now I think I have a good schedule, and I'm going to keep that up next year. And if they don't provide me with a certain spray, I'll bring my own in. I think that's going to help as far as germs being spread. I definitely don't want to get a cold again if I could help it. But also, I want this year, as far as experiences with teachers, with students, everything seemed to be a little bit different when we had to line up, how we had to sit, how we had to kind of interact. Everything seemed a little bit, exciting and new, even though it seemed weird for the first few months. And basically, when I first saw all of my rotations for the first time, I gave that speech of like, it's weird, we're going to survive. But, yeah, we have to do all these things, but, we're in this together. And so I wanted to introduce that we're going to have an experience together. The experiences this year taught me several lessons about how we can make do with limited resources, or maybe having a lot of resources and just having limited students and limited means to get them out, and how basically to adapt. And I think we did a great job at that. I think any experience that you have, even if it's a difficult experience, is a good one because it can teach you how to better yourself and to survive, right? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Cooperation, my next point, was proven. And what I meant by that is that we could cooperate. So students understood to help their peers on how to understand what we had to do as far as our protocols for staying safe. But cooperation on how to do things, in my class, I saw that all the time. Them students cooperating with me, staff cooperating with other staff, working together because we knew what we had to do for a job. And in the past, in the hustle and bustle of so many students, we're talking about a school that has over 600 students with probably a 500 student limit, as most of these schools that I've seen built, they generally say, yeah, 500 is a great amount. we can go over, we have to try to make do, and we had to make do. At one point, I think it almost 700 students, maybe my first year. So, yeah, this was a different thing, and I think we worked better with the smaller groups, and we got to cooperate without having the classroom and just basically people management that basically takes up most of a teacher's life when there's so many students. I mean, when you have a classroom that is a little bit bigger than the room I'm in right now, filled with 20 or more students, it's hectic. It's very hectic, and I walk down to some of the other wings where my class is nowhere near, and I see sometimes scenes that look like pandemonium, and I think, wow, this is crazy. I can't imagine they're getting anything done. How are they surviving? Wow. This year, not so much. I feel like there was some cooperation that was done with, there were a lot more people that were available to help out because there were less students. I feel like, this is a good amount that we had. And what are we going to learn from this? That a smaller student population is better for teaching. I think we all knew that. That's been in every journal I've read about classroom size for like many, many years. So that's nothing new. But we don't decide how many students we can have. We basically have to be a school for the public. So the public requires that. That's what we have to provide. It's just that cooperation this year, I think, was just better than it has been. And I'm hoping we can take that in future years when we may have double the population and double the trouble, which I'm not looking forward to. So my next point, take this with a grain of salt and realize how this is being, mentioned. Misery loves company. If you're sad, it's true in life, you're sad and someone else is sad, it's kind of nice to be together and to kind of talk through it, right? If someone else can help you feel better and you can help them feel better about any situation. It's also nice if everybody you're with is going through the same struggle and you can talk about it and you can help understand it better. Maybe you understand that someone else has it worse than you. Maybe, you know, they can understand how you might have something worse, and they can help you out. I mean, that's the thing. This year, I think everybody was a little bit miserable, and maybe not all days, but sometimes. And hey, we were together in this. Like I mentioned earlier, we wanted to survive together. So misery loves company. I saw that happen this year. I saw people that were miserable, but they were miserable together. So it kind of made them less miserable. I mean, that's the thing. You can't, it's hard to be upset when someone you're talking with is smiling and trying to make you feel better. And I just feel like the school was kind of like a great place to recharge yourself and to be around staff that were like friendly, and you just kind of felt like, wow, I kind of like being at work compared to, whatever my life is outside of it, whether it be boring because you don't have a lot of things to do during the day, or maybe you're just devoid of people. As I mentioned before, many times in this podcast, I'm an introvert. I get my energy from not being around people, but I found that I'm getting a little bit more extroverted. So I have been getting some energy when around people. Some people, I get excited to work with people. Last night, for instance, playing with two other band members, it was great to finally be able to make sound with other people and see how my sound, which has changed, I think, has, can be influenced by others and how it fits with others. And we were kind of miserable hearing about certain news about the band, or certain gigs, and how kind of Maine is reacting to the summer and opening it back up again. But I think by the end of the night, we were pretty happy with what we've accomplished. And yeah, played all new music that we I haven't played before, and it just felt great. But misery loves company. Think about it that way rather than the bad way, right? Last point, smaller classes, as I mentioned before, was an amazing positive this year. Personal attention, me giving personal attention to individual students. If I couldn't do it in class because maybe I had things to do in class, but also I could not listen to every student, for maybe they wanted to talk to me at a length, they could do that online, and they could make videos, and they could write to me, and that happened. And I'm so thankful that happened, because I could give them the personal attention that maybe they wanted in previous years, or maybe it's the first time they met me and they're like, wow, someone's listening to me. And I made sure to listen and write back a well thought out answer. So give them a response that they basically needed. And the last little point, the positives for this year, little management issues. There wasn't a lot of classroom management. I didn't have to do the protocols I've done in previous years to get students to listen and follow things. I didn't have to waste class time giving a 15-minute speech about how everyone needs to be nice to each other and stop touching each other and not be mean and this and that. I didn't have to do that. Of course, I have a poster up that talks about respect, and I have all these different things, but I didn't have to mention any of them. I could stick to what we had to learn. We could learn it. And I think we were all better because of that. And I'm not looking forward to next year and having to bump that classroom management up and lose content. So if that's anything that is bad on this slide as far as positives, it's the fact that with few management issues this year, I'm at a little bit of a deficit for next year, because I hope my skills for classroom management haven't slipped, because I haven't had to. I guess we'll find out. So our 60-second rant today, my 60-second rant today, missed opportunities. So Mr. Ritchie came by this week. There was a sort of little tiny get together, just a few people. And we talked for at length about a number of different things, and, about school, about educating, about our podcast, this podcast right here, about a lot of different things. And I thought this would be great for us to talk on a podcast about. I should just record this. And then I realized I need to find a way to have a camera that I can just turn on and to just go with it. Of course, he wasn't set up the way he wanted to. And he says, where's our notes? What are the slides? What is this? Because of this thing we started in this past season that we were doing. So in the future, I'm not going to be afraid of that. I'm just going to push record and let me worry about that on the editing floor. So that's my missed opportunity this week. I hope I don't miss another one. Well, thank you everybody for joining me on show number 61. I hope these monologues, and I guess I'm going to call them that because I'm basically talking to a camera and a screen with slides on it. But I'm hoping this helps someone out there that you might keep up with this podcast. We have a lot of different things planned out, Mr. Ritchie and I, for the summer. As I mentioned, we have a new camera. We have some other different audio things that we're going to try out. And we have some ideas that will take us into different formats. One time we recorded something about reacting to videos, and we want to do a lot more of those reaction videos from a science perspective, as well as an educating perspective, but also to describe subjects that are pretty, commonplace. How would an educator look at something? How would someone who follows science, follows quantified self, wants to live an extended lifetime as much as they possibly can, and wants to better themselves every day? How would they view this commonplace thing happening in the world, and how can we make a better situation out of something that doesn't seem ideal? I think that's what this podcast was. We determined that's what we wanted to do. So we kind of began this podcast hoping that's what we could do. And if you've been with us since episode 1, thank you so much. Wow. I know it's been a long ride. We're going to keep going with this. If you're new to this channel, maybe I'm a little more perky some days than others. I don't know. And I'm definitely a different person, slightly different person when I have another person that I can interact with. When I'm just doing a monologue and worried about what I might edit out, I'm slightly more subdued. But not really. Maybe. I don't know. Oh, I do know. So, thank you for joining me, and please take care of yourself, and enjoy the warm weather if you have it.